This is our second week of exploring the face of violence in our world of games. Because indeed, games can include acts and forces of violence. This week we're exploring the face of violence in the games that we hold in our hands and watch in the entertainment we see with our very eyes. I want to share two experiences with you. First of all, we were in a group of friends. We had in common that we were all parents. One night it was suggested that we go to a new movie that was showing that was related and rated PG. The invitation was, let's go see it together. Of course, was the response for what would be better than to have our children to see a harmless movie about dogs. One father objected and said he wouldn't take his children to the movie. And we asked him why, and lo and behold, he had seen the movie. His answer was so simple, so clear, so provocative. He said, the movie is a portrayal and the romanticizing of violence. I won't take my kids to a movie that portrays violence as legitimate and the source of good humor. Well, some of us went ahead and went to the movie and realized that our friend knew what he was talking about. And as I reflect on this experience, I realize that often violence is sneaky. The face is even discovered in movies that are rated PG. The other experience was in a conversation with persons from other countries, and we had an exercise which started as we were given a list of countries in the world and asked to write one word which best described the countries. Some of the countries, some had visited, others had only read about or heard about, and it was really a hoot, a wonderful exercise, as well as disturbing. The disturbing element is that persons from countries other than the United States, with no conversation with each other, described the U.S. with a word more than any other word that was used, and that was the word violent. How did they reach that understanding? By being exposed to the games we play, especially the games we play in our handheld devices and in the movies we produce and watch, or the programs on TV that we consume, all of which are exported day by day, hour by hour, throughout the whole wide world. Now, I know many studies have been made concerning whether board games and electronic games, which include the element of destruction and elimination of action portrayals of human beings, whether or not this really influences and sometimes determines destructive and violent behavior in the lives of those who play the games. The results of these studies vary, but one common finding is that the younger the player, the more likely the player is to be influenced. The very existence of these studies indicates that some influence must exist. It's my opinion that even if it cannot be proven that violence on the screen or on the board and in electronic games is at least a training exercise in establishing violence as normal and legitimate. Now, let us unpack the word that best represents the U.S. to the outsider looking in, is violence. Well, let's just look at the lineup of shows on TV which are shown during prime time. Just look at the breaking news during primetime news. It's violent crime. Just look at advertising of services and products. More and more incidents of violence are attractive come-ons to the consumer. While I was preparing the material for this face of violence, in our entertainment world, the news of a new theme park was announced. The theme will be the world of villains. The world of villains with violence at the first, middle, and final rides of a theme park. A destination experience. When you live in another country, you experience the primary export of the United States to determine your description of the culture. And one of our primary exports is our products of entertainment. This is another illustration of how violence is sneaky when one of the primary faces of violence is found in how we choose to be entertained. What a change for the last 50 years. It was 50 years ago when I got to know a leading producer of television shows in Hollywood. And he retired early. And the question was, why? And my friend Charles said, well, I was attracted to my occupation of producing TV shows because we understood that our goal was to make America laugh. It's now changing. The goal of entertainment is to share the dark side of our imaginations and life together. And I don't want to be a part of that change. Now, to be sure, there are efforts to balance the content of entertainment. Meaningful stories of love and care and empathy are often included in nightly newscasts to sort of balance the time. I personally yearn for the day when these stories are placed at the beginning of the newscast rather than at the end of the show, and are shown every day, not just on Friday. There are many faces of violence in these two sessions that we have added to the faces of violence, that which we experience in the games that we play and watch on the field, and in the games we play with our hands and see with our eyes. And this really reinforces how violence is derailing our search for meaningful faith based on the life and teachings of Jesus. The life and teachings of Jesus was captured by the Apostle Paul when he described the way Jesus taught us to live. He says, love doesn't strut. Love doesn't have a swelled head. Love doesn't force itself on others. Love isn't always me first. Love doesn't fly off the handle. Love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. Love always looks for the best, never looks back, but keeps on going to the end. You see, as followers of Jesus, I believe at the core of our calling is to call violence out when we see it. Resist the temptation to ignore violence in the games we play as irrelevant. And when we choose to fill our life of fun and games in experiences that are consistent with the way of care, respect of others. Let me say that again. You see, as followers of Jesus, I believe at the core of our calling is first to call out violence when we see it. Secondly, resist the temptation to ignore violence in the games we play as that's just irrelevant. And thirdly, choose to fill our life of fun and games and experiences that are full of respect and care for the other. Yes, violence is sort of sneaky, isn't it? Showing up in our world of entertainment every single day, and sometimes every single hour. Lot to think about, lot to talk about. Here's some questions that you might use to start your way of reflection. What's your response to the understanding that one of the faces of violence is found in the games we play, holding in our hands and see before our very eyes? Secondly, what in your opinion, can parents, families, and communities do to prevent the acceptance and normalization of violence in the minds of children? And finally, in what ways has the church contributed to the acceptance and normalization of violence in our culture? Thanks for thinking. Thanks for conversing. And we'll continue next week.